Good morning and welcome to Flower Patch. I am deadheading for the first time my Colette climbing rose. Now most of my roses are not blooming yet. This was purchased and it was full of bud and I just put it here, planted it in this pot. I did a video last week of the garden and I was uncovering this rose because the weekend before we had had a freeze and snow. And I wanted to make sure I didn't lose all my buds on this rose. But I never did get it up. It was just a busy week. So anyways, it worked. The fleece I covered it with, it's a shade cloth, protective row cover type material, and it did the job I needed it to do. I didn't lose any of the buds. And it's gone ahead and bloomed. It's a little bit in shock still because I had transplanted into this large pot. I had been going to put it in the ground, and when there was another rose here in a pot, when I moved the pot, big gopher hole under it. So I thought I'm not going to risk my new Colette climber until I know I've gotten the gophers under control. So let's start our tour where we usually do over by the cottage studio. So we shall start right here. I don't have my fountain going this morning yet. I should go plug that in, huh? Let me plug that in for you. Excuse my backside to you. I love this fountain. And putting it right here by this plug is perfect. Let me see if it's going to start running. Sometimes they get an airlock. Let me see if it's starting to run. No. So what you do is you reach down and you unplug the hose from the fountain or the pump, and then you plug it back in. And then it should start running. I don't know why that happens, but airlocks happen with my solar fountains too. I am going to show you my other fountain, solar fountain, running. The birds, you can see I already have a hummingbird coming to the feeder there, and they love to shower in that fountain when it's running. Right now the sun isn't shining. I had been planning to go ahead and, I'm talking as I'm walking here, go ahead and do this when it's sunnier so you can see the fountains running. And it never fails, something starts happening here. I had people back here pruning the apple trees, and then my neighbor's son was blowing off her deck and getting it ready to restain it. So it was just so noisy. It didn't turn out. So I'm going to do it early in the morning again before everybody starts working around here. And later on, I might do an update a little bit when it's sunnier. But I did get some footage of my fountain running, and I will put that in here while I'm talking to you, if I haven't already. And then I wanted to point out, I've got lots of stuff planted in here. I have white swan echinacea. I have a Verbena Bonariensis. I was going to put maybe the blackberry or a climbing rose here to cover this area of the fence. And I remembered I had what's supposed to be an evergreen clematis. It's called Montana Apple Blossom. And even though it may not be evergreen here, it will green up in the spring early so that it'll cover this fence like I want. So I put that there. Here, this hollyhock here is a double, and it's called Peaches and Cream, or Peaches and Dreams, something like that. It's beautiful coloring. And there's another one called Rose Chiffon that's pink and white. I want to get some of those too, but all of my others, the gophers ate. I didn't know they would eat hollyhocks, but they do. And, oh, I got don't know if you can see this over here. Let me go turn it so I know you can see it. And I might even get a little closer. Okay, here we are, a little bit closer. This is my Viburnum. This is the blue muffin, which has pretty blue flowers. It already still has the flower buds on it, so I can't wait to see what it looks like in bloom. And I planted it right here, so this will make a nice pretty, I'm going to train it as more of a tree than a bush. So that will be gorgeous there. Obviously it greens up early in the spring. And over here is the Clematis I planted next to this. I have climbing on my tool shed. And it's just going crazy right now too. The sweet peas I planted down at the feet of it in one of my previous videos of direct sowing sweet peas. They're growing just fine too. So I've changed how the pathways flow here. And I had thought about getting some commercial edging. There's one called Eco edging or something at Home Depot. It's made from old tires, and because I really wanted to find the borders. And then I thought, you know what, I want to garden for nature, right? So I decided to go with more natural elements. I have tree limbs, big tree limbs that broke out of trees this past winter. I have other pieces that I've gotten collected, and rocks. So I'm going to use those as edging. And with the wood pieces, they will rot over time and feed the soil and organisms and bugs and what have you. So I think I'm going to go the more natural route than buying something. Plus, it's just me moving it or cutting it up if it's too large. So it's basically free material. It's just my time. So I like that, a budget-friendly garden. You don't have to go buy things to have a beautiful garden. And I really want to emphasize that throughout my tours, throughout my garden. And I always want to implement things that are going to feed the soil. It is so important to feed the soil. You will not have to buy bagged fertilizers of any kind if you feed the soil. Compost, natural elements, etc., like putting your leaves down in fall rather than hauling them off. All of those will create healthy soil. So let's get going around our usual path. So right here, I still have the rose, and this isn't going to be here. The path is actually going to run right through there. And you can see, let's see, I'm going to point this down. Whoops. You can see this piece of wood here that's the border, and the pathway is going to run along this side of it. So these things will need to move. I will have, you can see these stepping stones down here, etc. I'll have one or two placed over here in the bed so I can step in there without knowing where I can step without hurting a plant. And then I can get back to tie up the Clematis when it starts growing and other things, prune. And I need to show you this. I got this hay rack to hang on the fence, and I'm going to put some not climbing plants, but draping plants in it. And until the Clematis gets up there, this will help provide a backdrop on that fence. And I think it will be a pretty element. I got lots of wave petunias. I love wave petunias, and they will drape down 4 feet. They'll cover this thing. As well as the beautiful thing is they reseed. So if any seed drops on the ground, I can get free petunias there. I have other elements I'm going to put in there that drape too. This spot gets part sun, part shade, and the wave petunias do really well in those conditions. Other petunias that drape far, they don't do well in that condition at all. So I really like the versatility of the wave petunias. And they come in all kinds of colors, which is wonderful too. So my tool shed, which I actually do have tools in there, the bamboo in front of it needs to be moved. The 2 bamboos here that need to be moved, I haven't moved because I tried, they're very heavy, and I hurt my back. So I have to be careful and be more prudent about such things. Let's turn around here. We're going to look down the center. Let me move back a little bit. And you'll see this centerpiece. And this pathway is going to move. I'm going to have a couple stones going up to here, but I'm not going to have a pathway leading right to the centerpiece anymore. didn't like the flow of the garden when it was chopped up in quadrants, so I'm changing it. And that's the beauty of not having anything solid in place right now until I really have a design that really speaks to me. So, but I'll have you know, let's go forward a little bit. And we will look down into the pot. And I wanted to point out something to you. The lilies I planted last fall in here are beginning to pop up. Here's one, there's one over here, and one right here. So they're coming up. Like I said, I didn't think I put one in the middle. For a while there, I've had this sitting in the center because I kind of like the pop of color, but I didn't know if I had any lilies coming up. So I was leaving it down here in the meantime until I know for sure there's no lilies in the center. These will just fill in this pot and just make some pretty evergreen color. This stays a chartreuse through the winter. Some of it dies back a little bit, but it pops right back up as soon as it warms up. I had tried looking at boxwood there too, but I didn't care for it. This is one of my sprinter boxwoods. I'm not sure where I'm going to put it right now. So there's our centerpiece and how it's doing well. Like I said, I have pots and stuff sitting everywhere because it's not completed. I've been trying to get so many things into the ground because we are getting some very, very warm temperatures for this time of year. So let's see what I did over here. I have some limbs that I'm going to create a border with, and then I'll have that line, and then along that I'm going to put some alyssum or lettuce. Lettuce makes a great edging, a short edging. The purple rooster down here is doing beautifully. I'm going to cut it back and pull some of it out. I don't want quite that much there. The delphiniums are coming up. All my roses especially have been fed with alfalfa pellets. I have a video where I was showing you how I put alfalfa pellets on my roses. It was kind of a jumble of different things, like an update on my Japanese maples, where I pruned and trained them, and then feeding the roses and other things like that, just a mishmash of things. But so if you see something on the ground that looks kind of like pellets that are melting, that's what it is, alfalfa pellets. So I have my two roses here. That climbing rose that was over there where Colette is right back there. It's still in its pot. I won't put it in the ground because of the gophers, but it does beautifully in the pot, and I've already got it climbing on the fence. So that'll provide a nice backdrop there. Back here, over here is another one, Pretty in Pink Eden. And that one is also a beautiful climber, and hopefully it will take off. I did risk it and put it in the ground. Reuben, you're right in the middle of my flower bed. Don't be laying on plants. So that's all good. Look at this, iris is about to burst open. Now this isn't going to stay here. It's just sitting here for the moment, just putting things out here. I knew I could get watering it because I make sure I water these right here. Yeah, we're going to get such warm temperatures that I'm trying to get all the potted plants, which are kind of laborious to water, and I want to get them in the ground. And I have a irrigation system that I am setting up. So it's one of the many things on my list. Over here we have my Iceberg Rose. It's full of buds. It's going to bloom really soon. Look at these. Let me try not to step on anything I have planted. Delphiniums. They're just growing like gangbusters and doing great. This rose in the pot, that's a Hyde Hall David Austin rose, is doing great. The two little cuttings I stuck in there this last winter, when I cut off the Iceberg Rose, I stuck in there. They're still alive. One's even leafing out. So I may get new roses from that experiment. And I'm thrilled about that. I also have some out front I cut off my Eden Rose when I was pruning it back, and I stuck it in a pot right there next to it. And they are going gangbusters. I pulled one out, and it actually had the callousing before it puts out roots on it, and they were still green. So I may get new roses from those cuttings too. And I did nothing special other than cut the rose, pruned it, and stuck those in a pot in winter. Go figure. Alrighty, we're almost all the way around. I have a bed I want to show you that I got planted up just recently. So here's one of those natural elements. Before we go to that new bed, right here, there's 3 logs stacked and I have things sitting on them. One is a Lavender Topiary. That mop bucket there, the violas came back from it by themselves from seed, and I just left it over winter, and they are just blooming like crazy right now and putting on a show and draping out of it. I just love it. And the basket there, that got knocked over, so the ivy in it's looking a little pitiful. I got to fix it. I had it trained on the handle, but when it got knocked over, it unpotted it. Therefore, it's looking a little worn out. How did it get knocked over? Well, the bear's been back, and he is so destructive sometimes. But he didn't get my chickens, which is really what he was after. Alrighty, over here, this bed. I want a lot of these plants. I shouldn't say a lot. A good portion of them came from Annie's annuals, and they were hardy perennials for me. This one I haven't got in the ground yet. This one I did order online. This one is Orion hardy geranium. This one's supposed to be as pretty and productive as Roseanne. I was moving my path and it looks like these alliums got a little smushed. But here's another hardy geranium. It has these real pretty, it's called Bill Wallace. Little pretty little blue flowers, and I want it to grow up amongst this little orb here. I did put a Verbena Bonariensis right over here. I have these are Rose Campion, but these are not the pink ones. They're white with a blush center. So they ought to be really pretty there. I grew those from seed. That over there is a, let me see, I can't remember what it's called. I know what it's called, but it's not coming to mind. So this is a Gara, that's what I meant. This one is Pink Picotee Stratosphere, and that's going to be pretty and airy, just like the Bonariensis, the Verbena Bonariensis, and these hardy geraniums can be airy and very pretty. These daisies in here are the daisies I grew from seed. I have a patch of the gray, amazing gray poppies that are right there. And the ligustrum there is not going there. It's just shading the poppies for now because we've had such harsh sun for this time of year, and they were just freshly put in the ground, so I wanted to protect them. And next to it looks like, what is that? I don't know, but it's coming up, whatever it is. I'll know when it blooms. But that's that bed for now. It already had the irises in it, etc. And these all will fill in very pretty. There's already some poppies too that are coming back from last year. I'm hoping they're the pink ones and not the red. And not that I don't like red, it's just the red is not a dominant color back here. I'm going with pinks and purples and blues. And I'm avoiding yellow and red back here. My cat's climbing the fence trying to get a hummingbird. Goofball. Okay, let me show you this section over here. I'm more interested in you seeing the beds than me. That's why I'm kind of not really in the picture, or halfway in the picture. Okay, over here, I've been working on this bed as well. Now, let's see all of the work here. This is the sweet pea that I showed you that overwintered. It's coming up this little obelisk here, which I still need to secure it well in the ground. I need to get some little staples, garden staples, to put it down. I make my own from a hanger. The violas all came back from seed. The pine cones I'm going to use as a garden decorative element, and they're not going to go in that tub. I just collected them in that so I wouldn't get sap all over my hands. Let me see, I'll show you how big these are. These are sugar pine cones. You see how big they are? And stacked up, they make a real pretty natural element. Over here, I hope you can see, is Lobelia. I've put in the ground. I bought that as a 6-pack a few months ago, and I had it in the greenhouse. And it just was pretty color in there. And so I got it out here. Here is some Alyssum Lobularia that I grew from seed. Actually, this came up by itself in a flower box that I didn't empty. And so it had seeded itself in there, and I've got a ton of it coming up. In fact, I was going to seed some more, and I don't need to. I've got so much coming up. That is a barbecue rosemary, and I can't wait for that to get big. I usually have rosemary in pots, but I wanted to try it in the ground and see how well it would do. It's supposed to be pretty hardy here, so we'll see if that holds true. And I'm looking around. I just spray painted a pot, and I'm going to go get that. And it's because I wanted to put one of my Japanese maples in it. And don't mind my clutter back there. I just moved that piece of fence or roofing. It was part of my fence in the back, and I didn't like where it was at. And I have had nowhere to put it yet. So I spray painted a pot that I want to put this Japanese maple in. This is doing beautifully. It's one of them I grew from seed. I have more in the greenhouse I want to show you in a minute that I just started this year. I probably should finish off the top of this, but I just spray painted this with some metallic paint. I have galvanized metal and terracotta as my pots out here, and I wanted it to match. So I'm going to put the tree in here, and I'm going to set it right here for the interim. This gets some sun, but a lot of shade too. So this tree ought to be just fine right here. I can keep a close eye on it. And I need to keep close eye on some things because I almost killed one on the other side of my studio because I didn't water it enough. So with this right here, it will get watered plenty and continue to grow on. I think that's pretty much for back here. Everything over there by the Colette Rose, that's the same as it was. Those delphiniums are going to be gorgeous really soon. Oh, I did want to say, over in this galvanized tub, and I'm going to make sure it's in the camera. Yes, but I'll take it this way a little bit. This galvanized tub has tons of violas in it that are coming back from seed, but that's not the real star of the show. I planted some sweet peas in here, and they are a short sweet pea that drapes. So that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of them have come up so far. None over on this side. This black-eyed Susan needs to come out because I don't want that there. I can transplant it somewhere else, but that's going to be really pretty, filled with those sweet peas that climb and drape. Not climb, but drape. There are 4 containers and hanging baskets. So that ought to be really pretty, and I'll share that. I may pop a few more seeds in there for succession planting. Sometimes the first batch will be done, then the second batch will take over blooming. So that's my strategy with those sweet peas. I'll give you one more view. This is the part that's over by the Colette Rose. You see the Colette Rose. I got some petunias planted down in here. Those are just a regular little 6-packs. Those are mounding petunias, which will make a beautiful edging there. They don't get too tall, too big. They don't take over. Try to swamp anything else out. The tomato cage that's upside down with the pot on top, that is around, and it's called an Aglaya daisy, which is very fluffy daisy flowers, but they're very heavy and they have a tendency to flop. So growing up through that will provide the support it needs. I just love terracotta pots on these. You saw them last year in this. I had sweet peas growing on these, and the terracotta pot on top it keeps the feet together, as well as, those are sharp. If you bend over, you could poke your eye with it. But I also like the design element of the little terracotta pots. And these ones I was getting, I don't know, the prices have gone up on everything, but last year I was picking those little pots up for $1. So they're not very expensive for what you are getting. So let's continue on to my veggie garden. And it's right here. You can see my little stool. This little stool, I showed it in my last video, I think. Lifesaver. I just love that kneeling stool. It's got a pad on it and the handles to get up and down for my old body. It just works great. So over here's my greenhouse. I still have tons of pots lining the path, which those will either get planted or moved under the deck. We're going to be gone for a week, so My house sitter, I didn't want to have her out here watering every day. For me, it's easy. I do it in between, you know, having to sit at the computer for different things. But somebody else, you may have things to go do and whatever and not want to be stuck here in my garden all day. Okay, let's go look at the veggie garden. Looks like the sun's starting to come over. And never mind the obelisk tilted over. I needed to secure it. The wind was blowing the other day and it blew it over. So I just leaned it back against the chicken pen. I'll just drive some rebar into the ground and lash it to it so it will be supported. But this bed right here, I had another one of these. I don't think it's going to fit unless I do it lengthwise. I've told you that before. I still haven't gotten it in there. I'm debating what I'm going to do. And so like I said, it's not been put up yet. I have a bunch of, the pots are Clematis that I have started from bare root. I didn't start them, but I bought them, put them in pots, and they're starting to grow out. And I need to do something with them soon so that they don't die in a pot through the summer getting too hot. But I wanted to show you my, let me show you this. These are the sea hollies that I planted in my video on how to plant sea hollies you buy at the store. And then I found a whole, like 8, I had started from seed in pots, and now I have a ton of sea holly. They're 2 different colors though, so that should be fun having both. I'm sorry if I'm too wiggly here. Forgive the chickens, they're just so noisy this time of the morning. My new garden fork, my other one disappeared. I don't know how it managed, to walk off, but I just absolutely love this for moving compost and such things. And when I digged out the chicken pen, it really is handy. The strawberries are coming along. I noticed some bug activity. Don't know what that was, but it seems to be calming down a little bit. So that bed is good. I have more strawberries down here. I need to get planted into the garden, and my lettuce over there is going crazy. I will bring you up so you can see over here better. Okay, so here's the beds. Still these 2, let me walk over here in front of you, these 2 still only have the crimson clover in it, which is blooming beautifully. I've got a few other seedlings coming up at that. I can see some black-eyed Susans coming up in there. Down there, I planted a tomato. For us, that's unreal for this time of year. Usually it's towards the end of May and not the beginning. But I was taking a chance on it. That is an early girl tomato, which it produces in 50 days rather than 75. So 2 weeks earlier, I'll be getting lovely garden fresh tomatoes. Over here is my lettuce. Look at this. It's ready for picking. So this one, especially, I need to pick. I probably should pull some of these out and let the others fill in more, or I can just cut it and eat it. And doing great. Back here, I have some sugar snap peas in the ground, and I have that cover on it. Warm it up a little bit, but also the birds eat them like crazy. As soon as they pop up, the birds eat them. And I didn't have a piece of mesh to put over it ready yet. I need to cut some more. So here, I finally got my poor suffering blueberries put into a pot. I had this in a fabric pot. I totally fail at growing in those fabric pots. Anyway, so the blueberries, I have high hopes for them. I didn't put them in the ground because they like high acid soil. Mine is more neutral. And trying to acidify the soil all the time is difficult. So I put them in a pot with acid soil, and I have acid fertilizer that I will give it. I will also mulch this with green pine needles. Why not yellow or brown pine needles? Brown pine needles do not acidify at all. They are no more acidic than leaves. So if you want to use those as mulch, go right ahead. It will not affect the pH of your soil. But green pine needles are acidic. And if I put those down here, they will help acidify the soil somewhat. So I think that's it for our veggie garden. The pot up there I didn't show you again. The lettuce is coming up great. The radishes are even coming up, and they were old seeds. I mean, like 10 years old. You know what? I should go show you. Telling you about it is useless. Let's go look at that pot. So here's that galvanized container I planted up. Excuse my shadow. The sun's coming over the trees. And look at that. all the lettuce. And shockingly, here are the radishes right here that are doing beautifully. There's one, two, okay, 2 radishes. But I got some cilantro coming up in the center. This is the black-seeded Simpson, and I think this is the Crunch. I'll have to look at that video again, which ones I put in here. But I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with how it's coming along. Now I could thin some of these out, which I may. Just take them out, and then the others will get bigger. Or I could just start cutting them like the others, and it's cut and come again. It will just keep on coming as long as I keep it watered. So I'm happy with my galvanized tub. And I can't wait for the cilantro. The cilantro I've been buying at the store is absolutely flavorless. I do not know what's going on with that, but you can't seem to get any with good flavor. I need to reseed some more just so I have succession. We eat a lot of cilantro. And that, my friends, is our garden tour for the first week of May for the back garden. I need to start doing the side and front gardens as I do those too, but we'll get there. So I hope you enjoyed it. You can see the progress I've been making. It will all fill in and be gorgeous. Most of the things I'm putting in are perennials that will come back. And then I can just pop in a few annual shots of color to go along with my natural elements. I do, like I said, have more logs to bring in for edging rocks. I can get a permit from the forestry and collect rocks as we go on our hikes, etc. And I'm allowed so much, and that will be fun. It'll be memories of our hikes as well as bringing in the natural elements I want. So I'm so glad you could join me on this garden tour. I will try to do another one, not next week probably, but the week after, and we'll see where everything is at in the garden, how it's progressed. I love looking back and seeing where things were and how it's coming along, and I hope you do too. So I'll see you guys in the next video.